Hello and welcome to Cracking the Rich Code, the podcast. I'm your host, John Verico, and my very special guest today. And I know I say this all the time about the guests because they're all special in their own way. But this particular person has just a really super remarkable story. I want you to meet Jane Pollack, who's an executive coach who found her true calling after she had dealt with a life-altering health crisis. And she's going to tell you more about that. Her chapter is in volume 18 of Cracking the Rich Code. You definitely want to check that out. And we'll get into what that's all about in just a moment. So here is Jane Pollack. Jane, how
Hello.
are you today?
Good. How are you, John?
Good, good. So glad to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, thanks for being a part of the Cracking the Rich Code book series. Can't wait to get a copy of volume 18 in my hand so I get a chance to read your chapter finally. I've heard about it. We've talked about it a few times and all of that. And so your chapter is called Remembering Me, My Story of Resilience and Reinvention. So
hmm
we're going to talk a little bit about what you wrote here, but let's talk a little bit about who Jane Pollack really is and what it is that you do.
Okay. Well, I'm an executive coach. I'm also slash career coach because I not only work with executives, but I work with young people who are coming out of school all the way up through C level. So I do partly private coaching, but majority of my work is corporate. And I work across industries, and I've been doing this for God knows a long, long time. I started this business. It's going on 7 years after, as you said, a health crisis, which I know we'll talk about. And I've been doing this for a long time as part of my former job in advertising, which I spent 30 years. So yeah, that's what I've been doing for a while now. Yes, and
Wow,
I
yes,
love it.
I'm doing all the math here, and I'm sitting going, boy, you must have started awfully young.
I did. I did. I started in advertising back in the early '90s, like really early '90s. I'm aging myself, and I fell into it. I was looking for a job, wasn't going for advertising, fell into it, and just sort of stayed with it. And it was the beginning of the digital era, like the very beginning, and it was a perfect time. And I fell into the digital aspect of marketing and advertising and sort of stayed with it, rose up the ranks, and continued on until I started sort of the executive component of my career. I lived in both San Francisco. I'm originally from New York, and I started my career in San Francisco actually, and I moved back to New York and continued on with multiple agencies. So that was sort of the beginning. The beginning until God, about 7 years ago when I left,
Wow.
when I had to leave corporate.
So,
Yeah,
so you talked about working with agencies. Were they like PR firm, marketing agencies, or was it
advertising
was the company
agencies.
focus a little different? You just did the marketing side.
I did. So I was on the business side. So I ran the account management aspect of it. So I worked with the clients. I had large teams of account people who had all different skill sets. So I actually did work in the advertising side for a very, very long time on the digital side, which was great because it was continuing to evolve over the years. And I got to learn so much along the way. And then I actually shifted to a PR firm for a short period of time. Went back to advertising. I think I was always trying to sort of evolve and learn different areas of the business, and I just wanted to be a more well-rounded marketer, especially on the digital front. So I ended up doing that until I had to kind of step away in 2019. Yeah. So
Wow. So
it's long run.
yeah. And it's such a great career field. I mean, I was in
Mhm.
communications and marketing as well in my
Mhm.
career, and so there's so many different things that you can do, and it's so interesting, especially when you're working with clients who are in different types of career fields and different types of industries. You get to learn so much constantly, and it's really a growth opportunity, and you don't get bored because you're always working on something completely different, right?
Yeah, well, it's funny that you say that. I was always working on something different. I think as most people would say, I still know a lot of people in the advertising world. It evolved over time, especially with digital and all the things that
Oh yeah,
came along with that, and where it sort of hit along the way in overall in marketing and communications. So that in itself was an incredible learning experience for me. I just happened to fall into it the right time in my life, and having no idea that's what I wanted to do. I found it extremely exciting, but it does, like a lot of industries, it comes with a lot of work. It comes with a lot of hours. As I used to say, we were always on. You don't really shut
yeah,
off. And I think, part of the reason that I couldn't sort of stay with it was because I think my body just sort of gave out over time. I was kind of ignoring it, but the signs were all there. I just chose to ignore them.
yeah.
Other people saw them, but I chose to ignore them because that's what was going on at the time. My work was just my
And then
solid
all of
focus.
us,
Yeah.
yeah, all of a sudden, then kind of like hit the brakes, and so tell us what happened.
Yeah. So in 2013, well, prior to 2013, I started seeing signs of something going on in my brain. At the time, I didn't really know what was happening, but a lot of my colleagues, even some clients, would see it in meetings, and they would ask me what happened. I would just have these areas of I would forget something for a second, or I'd have some sort of odd thing happen where I didn't understand it. I would almost fall off a chair or something to that effect. It was very bizarre.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and my colleagues would always say to me, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine," because I didn't want to deal with whatever was happening. I suppose so. That led to
We never want to admit something's wrong
no,
with ourselves.
no, we
Yeah.
never do. And especially when you're, quote unquote, a workaholic, as I was, and many people are. And it was my really sole focus was to just climb that ladder and be successful and give everything I had. I ended up in 2013 taking a day off that I hadn't had in a long time, going back to, going back to my apartment and having a grand mal seizure in my elevator of my apartment building by myself.
Oh
So
wow.
the only reason we know that because the cameras were there and the staff was able to see it happen. So and then I went from there to being in the hospital that same day, having another one. And as soon as you have two, you're automatically diagnosed with a seizure disorder, which is epilepsy in my case. So
Right.
and that started my journey. That started my journey with epilepsy. Um, and I sort of went from there. I had to just kind of figure out how to navigate it. Yeah.
Wow, huge change in your life,
Yeah.
especially for somebody who was so focused on career advancement and all this other stuff, and like you said, a workaholic. And now you're facing this kind of a truly a life altering
Yeah.
uh,
Right.
diagnosis.
And truthfully, I was 43 years old. So the idea of having
So
epilepsy at
young.
43 was an odd one because I was young, but I was old to have been diagnosed with this illness because many kids have it, obviously, or you get it younger in life. So
Right.
to this day, I believe, I don't think any doctor would say for sure, but I believe that I sort of drove myself into this health crisis in some way, shape, or form. Whether I wasn't paying attention to the signs prior, regardless of that, I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't taking care of myself. So I think health and wellness became, at that time, it did not become a focus. I continued on and doing what I needed to do. up until I moved from New York to California in 2014 for another big job outside of advertising, but in marketing for a media company, in which I continued to show signs and get sicker, and things started to change and shifted over to another agency, same thing. And it got to the point that it was so bad, my doctors told me it was time to step away, which I did. So,
Wow.
yeah,
And so you've highlighted some of this, some of what you went
correct.
through in the Cracking the Rich Code
Hmm.
volume 18 in your chapter,
Hmm.
and so definitely we want to dive into that. So, but let's talk more about uh, what you went through during this transformative time in your life, where you're kind of reinventing yourself with a new life with epilepsy.
Correct. And I had gone from sort of living with it, being diagnosed, living with it, keeping the same kind of hours, the same type of career, and not understanding the implications of that, to then hitting another wall and getting sicker. Yeah, only to find out that it was time. I know,
Stubborn,
very
stubborn.
stubborn. I mean, anyone who knows me knows that. I'm incredibly stubborn, especially when it comes to work. And in the best ways possible, I think sometimes I don't, now I take much better care of myself, obviously, which is why I do what I do and I teach what I teach. But yeah, I found out that, along the way, things started to change in my head, what I wanted to do next, where I wanted to be. But as many people come to me as a coach and say, I've been doing this for so long, I don't know anything else. I don't know what to do next. I don't know how to pivot out of this. So a lot of my coaching has been, not just the performance coaching and the management coaching, but it's the pivoting of a career to, at all ages, but a lot of people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, what they want to do, how do they take their skills and translate those. So that I do a lot of that kind of work, and that's because I did it myself. So as I was recovering from so I'm sorry, take a step back. I got
Mhm.
sicker. I was asked to step away from, well, I my doctors asked me to step away from advertising. It was time to leave corporate America. But the bigger thing for that year was to see if I would be a candidate for a certain kind of brain surgery. My type of epilepsy does not respond to medication, and hadn't been responding to medication, which is why I was getting seizures all the time. At the time, I didn't know that. We kept changing things out. But it came when I got out to California. My neurologist out here sort of realized that that was kind of what was happening, and I became a candidate for brain surgery. So I spent that next year of 2019, when I left my last agency, preparing myself for brain surgery, which was,
So you kept hold
yeah,
on, you kept this up. Like, you started having problems in 2013, 2014. You were getting advised to back off, and you went all the way to 2019
I
before you
did. I
actually.
did. Yeah,
Oh,
I did. And
yep. I'm gonna look up "stubborn" in the dictionary. I bet your picture is right there.
100% it is. There's a big picture of me. Big smile on my face. No, but I've learned a lot of lessons over the years, and maybe they came a little later in life, but they came, and that's good. I also, in this time, met my husband. Had more of a life around me, and people around me that were pointing out it was time to take a different path. So I think what ended up happening for me is, as I was recovering from sort of the last surgery, I had two, um, was, being who I am, I started to think, well, I have some time on my hands right now as I recover, and interestingly enough, it was moving into the COVID timeframe, because I had my last surgery in December, of 2019, and COVID hit the next couple of months, right? So I went from
Oh,
living in the hospital to living in our home, but also giving me a chance to really think about what I wanted to do next. And what was so interesting about COVID for me was that people started to think about a more purposeful life. How can I find more purpose in my career, more purpose in my life, things of that nature? And that was really my story.
right,
And I said to myself, what was the through line through my career that had really driven me this whole time? And it was really the people that I coached and mentored. I love them, and to this day, I know I'm pretty much in touch with most people, many people, and they fueled me. But I found I was really, truthfully, I was really, that was sort of, I was good at different things in advertising, but that was the thing that I was most passionate about. And I took that and said, well, what am I going to do with that now? I said to myself, I'd never be my own boss. And this was a time to say, why not? You know, and why not start my own
yeah.
coaching business? A lot of people had always said that to me, step away and start doing this full time. I thought that was the greatest idea at the time. But then again, I had this wonderful job, and it was giving me an incredible life, I thought, which was no life. But
I was going to say, when did you have time
I
for
really
that?
didn't. I really didn't. Looking back, I really didn't. But advertising taught me everything I know. It taught me the discipline. It taught me the relationship building. It taught me the team dynamics. It taught me the business strategy, everything. And I've, parlayed that into a business. And for me, it's just been an absolute gift to have this come into my life at a time when I needed it the most. So, yeah.
Wow. Wow. We are having a deep discussion with Jane Pollack, who's an executive coach and life coach, and has an amazing transformative story of recovering from or learning how to live with epilepsy. Kind of a later in life diagnosis that really was life altering and life changing for her and career changing.
Yeah.
And so Jane appears in Cracking the Rich Code, Volume 18. You definitely want to check that out. Her chapter is Remembering Me, My Story of Resilience and Reinvention. You want to look that out, and definitely want to. If you're just tuning in now, by the way, you want to go back and play this from the beginning, because Jane has an incredible story. And want to learn more about Jane, get onto her website, which is 4T, the number 4T coaching. 4T
You're close.
coaching.com. And that it's on the screen for those of you watching this on YouTube, and it'll be in the show notes for those of you who are picking it up in the audio side. Uh, Great conversation. And when Jane, now that you have, you know, I don't want to quite say learned your lesson, but now that you've gone through this transformation and you're now coaching others in the world,
Mhm.
both executives and people aspiring to become executives, how has your transformation changed, or how does it influence the way you coach people and what you advise people to do?
Yeah, a lot of people that I work with are, uh, ambitious, as most people are. They want, for younger people, it's different. Some think they need to have a 5, 10 year plans. For people who have been in the same career for a long, long time, they don't know how to, as I said earlier, they don't know how to leave that career if it's not working for them anymore, or they have a passion in life that they haven't pursued, but they feel like this is the time to do it. How do I do that? Um, from
Right.
my message, look, is obviously there's a health component here about balancing your life, and we all talk about work life balance to extent, and it's really hard to do. Truthfully, it is. Money comes into play, just with life, things that you need to support your life come into play. I understand that fully. But, there is so much more to being present every day and really understanding what's going on with your body, but also just, how that plays a part in your job, in your life, but in your job. We spend a lot of time in our careers, a lot, a lot of time with the people we work with, a lot of time just whatever you do for a living. And I think it's remembering that we're human and we're not machines, and we really need to take a step back and reassess kind of what is the most important. What are your values? What are your beliefs? What are your motivations? If they're not aligning with what you do for a living, or what you do for a living is not filling up your soul, uh, for me, I think that was a component towards the end, of my stint in corporate America, which was, this isn't making me happy anymore. Whether I wasn't feeling well or just I was exhausted, it wasn't
Right.
working. It wasn't combining my life and my work in a place where I wanted to be. And I think it took me many, many years to get there. And I'm trying to explain to people, don't wait until I did to get really sick to have your wake up call.
Yes.
It's not worth it. It is not worth it. And I think a lot of people who've gone through a journey like mine, I've spoken to many, and there's some in the book as well, and some of the other chapters and some of the other authors who've been through similar but different situations of like mine. I said, I think they would feel the same way. You don't want to get into this situation. And I stress that a lot to people. It's just slow down. It'll get done. It's not worth it. You can't live by everybody else's expectations. You really have to remember
That's one
who.
of the hardest lessons to learn,
Yeah.
isn't it?
And I think the whole reason I called it Remembering Me was, it was also a play on epilepsy, because my memory was going in and out a little bit. So that was part of the illness. But I think it was really about, I didn't know exactly what I really wanted until this illness gave me my wake up call. And I don't want people to go
Yeah.
through an illness to have a wake up call. I think that's a huge part of my message when I'm coaching, regardless of the teaching part of what I'm coaching about. It's really that underlying theme. So,
Yeah, that's the point. That's like I said, it's probably the hardest lesson to learn, and the point that we have to emphasize as coaches most often. And I think people who wind up in these kinds of career fields where we're working and advising and coaching others are really trying to do just that. And we're trying to make sure that other people don't make the same mistakes we did, or that you want to let people won't learn unless they do make mistakes,
yeah.
unfortunately. But they can realize that a mistake or any other kind of a roadblock they come up against is not necessarily the end. So here you had a real truly devastating, life altering illness,
Hmm.
and you could have just said, I'm done.
Hmm.
But instead, you stuck with it. You found a way to make it work for you. You found a way to make important teaching lessons from
Yeah.
it, and now you're helping others to prevent them from waiting to get to that
Yeah.
point. So often we do that to ourselves in life, right? We're always trying to put off our happiness, like, oh well, I'll,
Absolutely.
I can't wait till I get that next job, or I can't wait until I get that. I'll be happy when I get the promotion. I'll be happy when I move here. I'll be happy when I get married. I'll be happy when I get kids. I'll be happy when the kids are out of the house. Why are we waiting to be happy? Why are we not just being happy where we are
Hmm.
in what we're doing and find the happiness and the abundance right there in front of us,
Absolutely. And I
and
think
appreciate that?
taking, as a professional, taking your skills that you've already learned along the way and applying them to something that you love is not, it's not, you can do it, is what I meant to say. It's something where I don't think people realize they gain all these skills, whatever they're doing. And those skills can translate into a new type of career, or even a different, the same career in a different area, or a different company. You just have to kind of rethink your narrative and rethink um, how you're going to take those skills and apply them into a place where you feel fulfilled, whether that's being your own boss or working for somebody else. you want to go home every day feeling I have I have some time to have my life work outside of my job, that my job isn't everything to
Right.
me, as well as, just understanding that it is, it is so important to love what you do and be passionate about what you do. For so long, I did like love what I did. But I think that came with a lot of, for me, it came with a lot of expectation, as most big corporate environments do, and a lot of things that maybe I wanted at the time, but slowly over time found that weren't as important to me as myself. What I wanted, who I am, what I believe in, what I'm motivated by is different than, maybe perhaps what I was when I was a younger person, because I didn't know myself. Even when I was in my 40s, I think I was still trying to figure it out. I think some people get there quicker. For me, it took this, sort of challenging area in my life to sort of wake me up and go, okay, who are you? And what do you really want? What do you really want to do with the
Yeah.
skills that you've maintained over the years and obtained over the years? And this is where I landed. And I tell people all the time, I love my job now. I think it's hard for people to always say that, and I want that for most people. I do. You don't have to love every aspect of it, but you need to be passionate about what you do, and that will fill your life up. That piece of your puzzle in your life is super important. And I know that now. And that's what I want people to understand.
Oh, that's a beautiful way to kind of wrap things up here. We've been having a fantastic conversation with Jane Pollack. Jane is also known as Jane um, Barandus Pollack, and her LinkedIn, you will find her under Jane Barandus,
Mhm.
Barandes. But it's still Jane. If you search under Jane Pollack, I think you'll still
You will.
find her. But
Yep.
yeah, but definitely people want to reach out and connect with you, Jane. You've been just
Thank
fantastic
you.
to talk to and learning from. And I can't believe that we've almost been out of
I
time
know. I
already. It
know.
seems like we just got
I know.
started. But there's so much to learn from
Thank you.
you and so much advice that you're able to provide. And I think if you were to give one brief sentence of advice to people who are kind of entering the workforce now, or who are maybe looking at kind of their career progression ahead of
Mhm.
them, what advice would you give
Yeah, the
them?
one thing I've learned, especially working with young people who are in the business world, and things have changed considerably with digital and social media, and we all
Oh
know
yeah.
that generationally things change all the time, is that you do not have to have the first job, the second job, the third job doesn't have to be your last job. Just learn, bring in all the skills, understand what you want, and start to understand what your passion is, and that will reveal, ultimately it will reveal what you want to do in life. And just really pay attention, because I think we have heads down a lot, in our day to day, and we forget what the bigger picture looks like. I know that's really hard to do, but just staying present and really understanding that there is, whatever you're learning, even if you don't love it, you're learning something, and you'll bring that with you to your next, to whatever next career or next job you have.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
what a brilliant point that is, and it's so true. You mentioned early on that some people like to have like a multi-year plan and all this other stuff. And really, what I think probably the most important, and I think you've brought this out, is really to be flexible,
absolutely.
and to know that, and not to be concerned what you're doing now is going to do for the rest of your life. There's always
Yeah,
change. There's always things, new opportunities that are going to happen. I don't know how many times I changed careers or paths. Early on in my life, I kept thinking, well, this is what I want to do. And then I found something else. Well, maybe this is what I want to do. And,
correct.
now here I am in a much later stage in life, and I finally found my true calling.
Correct. That, just like
So,
me. Right. And
right.
this is where we landed, but we've taken all the skills over the years, and we've we've used those skills to sort of, ignite our passion and our professional life into something that we love. And I just, I hope that for everyone. I really do.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Jane
Thank
Pollack
you,
of
John.
4T Coaching. Definitely check out her website at 4tcoaching.com. That is the number 4tcoaching.com. Read her chapter in volume 18 of Cracking the Rich Code, and replay this message over and over again, because Jane has some real words of wisdom and inspiration here. Jane, thank
Thank
you so
you.
much for joining us today. Have a
Thank
wonderful
you.
rest of your day.